Friends, the coronavirus crisis, a worldwide pandemic, is ravaging our communities and putting at risk the lives and health of millions in the United States. In addition to the direct threat to people's lives from COVID 19, working people and those marginalized in our society to begin with are the ones most at risk from the massive spectrum of social consequences starting to result from this pandemic. It is clear that in order to help contain and end the pandemic, we need to take very seriously the recommendations and mandates from the scientific community, such as to stay home as much as is possible, to not have large gatherings, and to implement the practice of what has been termed as social distancing. At the same time, the coronavirus crisis is exposing under the light of day the utter dysfunctionality of the capitalist system. Capitalism has proven itself incapable of addressing the needs of the majority of humanity under normal circumstances, from the failure to provide healthcare, housing, and other basic needs, to its inability to address the rapidly emerging threat of climate catastrophe. This system cannot cope and is coming apart at the seams under the coronavirus emergency and is demonstrating again that it is an anarchic system built to feed the wealth of a few at the top and is immediately thrown into utter disarray when faced with the challenges of a pandemic. Workers around the nation have been told to stay home or they have had their hours cut, but then many don't have access to paid leave. Other workers have been laid off and have no income at all. 60% of Americans are unable to cover an unexpected $1,000 expense. The pandemic hits gig economy workers like rideshare drivers, it hits taxi drivers, service economy workers, small business workers, workers in entertainment industries, and retail workers. Many of these workers also experience heightened exposure risks from the virus, as do hospital and clinic workers and emergency workers, many of whom are stretched beyond capacity because the for-profit healthcare system squeezes profits for the few through severe understaffing and through denying services for the needy. Schools are shut down in accordance with medical recommendations, and most working parents do not have affordable childcare. While the coronavirus crisis is unraveling the lives of tens of millions of Americans in the working class, the rich are, not surprisingly, far more insulated from its economic effects, if not always the virus itself. Amazon paid $0 in federal taxes on its $11 billion in annual profits. And in Seattle and Washington state, this corporation and its billionaire shareholders, including Jeff Bezos, enjoy an unbelievable tax haven because the local Democratic establishment and the Republican Party are as tied to big business and the wealthy as is the US Congress. And Amazon executives have the shamelessness to tell their workers to donate their paid leave to others who are sick rather than taking responsibility and using their massive profits to ensure paid leave for all workers. And in the other Washington, the Trump administration, after having responded to the coronavirus crisis with historic irresponsibility and incompetence, has now announced an outrageous $1.5 trillion bailout for the big banks and corporations. In other words, for those billionaires who have pillaged our economy and society while telling working people that we cannot have decent health care, education, housing, or even guaranteed paid sick leave. It is clear that unless we fight, the human cost of this crisis will be incalculable and will be borne by the immense majority who are already under attack by the daily brutality of the capitalist system. It is clear that we as the working class will need to get organized in every way viable during this crisis, including remotely through social media, to fight to make sure that the burden of this crisis does not land on us. Here in Seattle, even in the span of a week, we have shown what is possible when thousands of working people and renters and one socialist city council office are willing to raise demands and fight collectively for them. A day after our movement called for free doctor's visits and treatment for all using the press and social media, the Washington state governor publicly announced free doctor's visits and one free prescription for those without insurance. Using social media, we organized and within hours forced the political establishment to stop fare enforcement in local public transit, King County Metro and Sound Transit. We are fighting for free public transit as a whole and greatly expanded transit to be funded by taxing the wealthy. But we said fare enforcement in effect targets the poorest amongst us and was especially unconscionable during a pandemic. This was an important victory. Without public intervention, we know renters will be evicted and small business owners will go bankrupt. Many renters have been speaking up. Earlier this week, we launched a public online petition demanding a moratorium on all economic evictions and late fees for both residential renters and struggling small businesses. Within a span of just 30 hours, over 7,000 of Seattle's renters responded to our petition, which forced the mayor, who is a corporate politician funded by Amazon and corporate landlords, to make an immediate concession and declare a moratorium on residential renters. This is another huge victory and a testament to how we need to keep getting organized, even if we cannot physically gather at political rallies because of the virus, and that when we have working people and socialist-led movements, we can win. But this is only the beginning. If you are watching this and are in Seattle, please keep sharing our petition because it includes additional demands beyond what we've won in blocking residential evictions. We are also demanding a moratorium on all coronavirus-related foreclosures to protect homeowners. We're demanding that landlords, utilities, and residential mortgage holders are mandated to work out payment plans that allow tenants and homeowners who are suffering economically due to the coronavirus epidemic have up to 24 months to fulfill their payment obligations, to catch up on the financial damage done by the virus. Because even with a moratorium, if we don't demand reasonable payment plans and timelines, tenants and homeowners will face crushing debt and evictions and bankruptcies once the crisis is over. So we don't want to just postpone the damage done. And we're also demanding in the petition that all residential landlords are required to extend expiring leases until at least 3 months after the end date of the emergency declaration. As many of you know, my council office and my organization, Socialist Alternative, and thousands of Seattle's working people, including tenants' rights organizations and progressive labor unions, have been building a fighting movement for a major expansion of green union-built social housing funded by the Amazon tax, a tax on the largest corporations in our city. The coronavirus crisis has made the Amazon tax even more urgent and vital. We need to immediately tax big business to fund the basic needs of ordinary people during this crisis. And we need far more. We need Medicare for all, guaranteed paid sick leave, free childcare, unionized living wage jobs. We see in the presidential election only one candidate who is fighting for these things. And that is why my organization and I have been going all out for Bernie Sanders. And that's also why I don't believe working people can support Joe Biden or accept the rotten status quo of corporate politics. We need a new party of, by, and for working people, completely independent of corporate money and corporate power. A party fighting for socialist policies to benefit the overwhelming majority rather than bend to the greed of the billionaires. That will fight unambiguously for the needs and health of working people and the planet. Capitalism is inherently hostile to the majority of working people, and it has no solutions for the crisis facing humanity. But I believe working people have enormous creativity, fighting spirit, and potential to overcome the challenges facing us if we act collectively, if we build movements to fight in our interests and to transform society, to organize society in a sane and humane way in which the world's resources and big corporations are democratically and sustainably run, not with human lives and health being continually sacrificed at the altar of profit and obscene wealth for a few. If you agree, I hope you will join us. It's time to wash our hands of capitalism and fight for a socialist alternative. Check out my organization at socialistalternative.org and get involved in the fight of our times. Solidarity.